Don't forget to check out and grab your copy of our 2 newly released books, Football, a Love Story, and What Did Football Teach Me? These books feature over 100 stories from current and former coaches, players, executives, and entertainers from across the football landscape, describing what got them involved in the game, what they love about it, and what life lessons the game taught them. You can find your copy or order your copy from our website at footballgameplan.com/books. Welcome to NFL Game Plan. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, bringing you our Week 7 preview between the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm going to be joined by our Football Game Plan analysts Ron Davenport, Chris James, and also Gene Clemens. So let's start this video off by taking a look at my keys to victory. Starting with the Seahawks in this ball game, defensive communication is going to be key. I think that's one of the biggest problems we've seen so far from the Seattle defense. They're not communicating effectively on the back end, and they're giving up big plays as a result. And it's going to be important for Seattle's offense to get off to a great start within the first quarter. If they're not able to do that versus a team that's similar in style and attitude like San Francisco, they can struggle. And I think they have to get back to basics. That's playing sound defense, doing a great job up front, running the football, operating off play action, taking timely shots deep down the field, and playing very good special teams. They can do those things, they'll win a lot of ball games. And for San Francisco in this ball game, defensively, I would go with gap exchange, a little bit of gap exchange versus the zone read of Seattle. It's not rocket science on how to stop the zone read. And when we talk about gap exchange, we're talking about having the defensive end who's responsible for the C gap take the B gap, which essentially puts him in a position to play the dive. And also on the back end, the second level, the outside backer who's responsible for the B gap, he's taking now the C gap, which puts him in a position to take the quarterback. It's simple, it's effective. I think if they can do this throughout the course of the ball game, they can have some success versus Seattle. And also defensively, they have to make the plays that are there to be made. Russell Wilson will put up a ball or two that can be picked off. He will give you an opportunity to sack him for 5 to maybe even 10 yards back there in the pocket. You have to make those plays defensively. And even on the offensive side of the football, if San Francisco is taking shots deep down the field and those receivers have a step on the defender, they have to come up with that play. They have to make those plays offensively and defensively if they want to have a chance to knock off Seattle. And the tight ends in this ball game, I think, for San Francisco can play a huge role. I think they have 3 solid tight ends, but all 3, I believe, Garrett Selleck, Vance McDonald, and Vernon Davis, they have to step up and become a factor, not only in the passing game, but also in the run blocking department to help spring Carlos Hyde. This week versus the Seattle Seahawks, so you know it's all about contain versus Russell Wilson. I think the 49ers do match up well in the secondary versus the Seahawks receiving core and passing game as a whole. So they can go with a 3-2-6 look, which is 3 down linemen, 2 backers, and 6 defensive backs, and be in a great position to not only play coverage, but also get pressure, contain pressure against Russell Wilson. You see we have the dime defender here. We also have our nickel back there in the slot. And what we're going to do, we're going to send both guys coming off the edge. You want speed to contain, and that's the name of the game. And we're kind of tipping our hand a little bit. I know some may say this looks like pre-snap cover 2 man, but really when you see these safeties aligned over the slot, 9 times out of 10 it's telling you that one of these guys is going to come. So what we're going to do is send these guys off the edge and get that speed, contain pressure versus Russell Wilson. We have 2 dog blitzers on the inside as well. So what we're doing here, we're going to loop this 5-tech inside, crash him inside because we're coming outside with the nickel back. We're coming outside with the dime back. You got speed, contain pressure right there. We're going to clog up these inside rush lanes right here. We're going to take this nose tackle and work him weak side. So what you have here, you're going to put this back in the bind. He's going to have to stay in and block. Otherwise, they're going to have to make a scat call and release him either left or right. So that's where the dog blitzers come in, because you have these 2 backers. So if he releases this way, it's his guy. If he releases that way, it's his guy. If this guy stays in and blocks, and one of these guys are going to be responsible for Russell Wilson, that's a communication call between these 2 backers. The other guy, my opinion, this one has the free reign to get pressure, so that's why you call him a dog blitzer. And you're manned up on the outside, forcing him down the sideline to where you have that help as your friend. And you're going to put a lot of pressure on your safeties, but you trust your personnel versus their receiving core, which is why I said that earlier. They're manned up versus these slot receivers, and they can drive on the football, and you have a spy right there with the inside backer. So that's one way. I know I talked a little fast, but that's how it has to happen versus Seattle if you're San Francisco. You can go to a 3-2-6 dime look, get pressure on the outside with that nickel and dime back, and be well protected on the back end with your safeties and your corners. Opening up the Seahawks playbook, you see Cliff Averill give a textbook example on what contained pressure looks like versus a mobile quarterback. You see him push the right tackle right in the arm of Cam Newton. That's what we talk about when we say push versus pressure. And the end result was an interception by Cam Chancellor. And going against a guy like Colin Kaepernick that has burned Seattle at times throughout the course of his career with his legs, it'll be important to make him stay in the pocket and be consistently accurate from it. You don't want to rush upfield. You want to get to a flat line point and then squeeze that pocket against him, get all of your pressure inside out. And I think that's where they can have some success. But doing things like this can help the Seahawks defense have success versus San Francisco.
My X factor for the Seahawks is going to be Richard Sherman. He just seems to have this way of coming up big in games against the 49ers. Obviously, this is going to be the first time he's going against a 49er team that's not led by his former coach, Jim Harbaugh. But I think Richard Sherman is the key. His ability to defend on the outside really will have a factor in this game. The 49ers like to go deep to Torrey Smith, and they'll look to get the ball to Anquan Bolden. So it's going to be interesting to see how Richard Sherman does against this 49ers team. As for the 49ers, my X factor is Colin Kaepernick. He's coming off of 2 really good games, especially last week against the Ravens, and he's a guy that can push the ball downfield. Excellent throw on the double move to Torrey Smith. So Colin Kaepernick is my X factor, not just because of what he can do throwing the football. He's always been able to create and do some really good things as far as getting yards when plays break down and running. He's the X factor in this game, running and passing the football. So Colin Kaepernick, my X factor for the 49ers. My prediction for this game, actually, I'm going to take the 49ers 24-21.
For the Seattle Seahawks, I'm going to start Jimmy Graham. They're finally starting to try to get him the ball. Take advantage of the fact that they're trying to force the ball to him, and they're going to get him as many targets as possible. I'm actually going to sit the Seattle defense. I need them to figure a few things out right now, and they're just not a good defense, especially away from home at this point. The home start, the one for the 49ers, I'm going to go with Carlos Hyde. You saw the success that a couple of backs have had against the Seattle front. I think that should continue. He's a good start. The sit will be Anquan Bolden. It's a consistency factor here. A guy like Bolden likes to work in the intermediate routes. This is the type of team that shuts down that type of action and actually lets people get over the top of them once in a while with the way they've been playing recently. Now, sleeper here is Jermaine Kearse, a guy who can work well in the red zone. You know they'll double Jimmy Graham if the Seattle Seahawks do get in the red zone, leaving a guy like Kearse to be one-on-one. At the end, I think Seattle just has too much firepower and they end up winning this one 24-13.
I like Seattle in this ball game. I think what you'll see in this matchup, both defenses will play well. Both running games will have limited success, which means it will come down to who can make plays in the passing game. And right now, I can trust Seattle's options on the flanks more so than I can San Francisco. And as we recap our picks, Gene is on a scouting assignment, so that's why he wasn't in this video, but he sent in his pick. He's going with Seattle, which means Tehran is the only lone wolf this week going with the 49ers. It should be a great game nonetheless in the NFC West. And we also want to give a huge shout out to Seahawk fan forums and 49er fan forums for always showing football game plan support.